Hello and welcome to Newsmakers for this Wednesday, September the 4th, 2024, and thank you for joining us. I'm Louie, and today we will be discussing the future of First Ontario Centre and the surrounding area and how it fits in with the downtown core, expected to face an influx of residents while dealing with massive construction projects, including the Arena Complex and the LRT. And to do so, I'm very pleased to be joined by lawyer and advisor of the Hamilton Urban Precinct Entertainment Group, or HUPEG, Louis Frapporti. And Lou, I just want to start. I think we're making podcast history. We have a Lou interviewing a Lou, which is pretty exciting for me. I might admit, because there's so far few between of us. We're not Mikes or Johns. The Lou name, the Louis Lewis name. Much appreciated that you're here.
Lou times two.
There it is. That's the name of the episode.
Fantastic. Great to be here.
Let's dive right into it. What is the latest on the renovations at First Ontario Centre? Obviously a massive project, almost $300 million, privately funded. But what can you tell us here today as we stand on September 4th?
Well, I think the first message is on budget and on time. They're projecting to complete the project as forecasted in November of next year, and the project, as I understand it from OVG, is on budget, and those two things are critically important.
Why was OVG the right partner, and what makes them a good partner, especially here for Hamilton?
Well, I don't know that the community will ever fully appreciate the significance of the HUPEG Group having recruited OVG and its partner Live Nation to this project. If we go back in time, Louis, the original commitment that HUPEG had made in taking over operational responsibility for those assets, and there are three. We've got the arena, we have the concert hall, and there's the convention center that were part of the original deal. There was an obligation under the agreements to ensure that a minimum of, I think, $60 million was put into the facilities. And of course, there was no requirement as to the specific partner that was brought in to undertake the arena renovation and redevelopment. But having cast it about and OVG having expressed an interest, we ended up securing the commitment and involvement of the world's #1 arena operator and developer, and with them Live Nation. And the significance of that is that you've got really a global tier 1 creator of arena venues, along with the world's preeminent programmer of those facilities, bringing in what will be, I think, some of the world's great musical acts in the future. And that really is a massive transformational opportunity for the city in terms of the quality of the corporate partners that are being brought in, their capacity to deliver, not just around the infrastructure and the quality of the asset, but in the acts that will ultimately come to Hamilton and create the impact that we're hoping for.
It really is a 1-2 punch of, like you said, the acts and the infrastructure. Because OVG, I remember they talked about this isn't their first rodeo. This is their first rodeo in Canada, so to speak. But talk a little bit about their experience retrofitting, renovating, something like this, a project like this. This is nothing new for them, coming into an older arena, and it's not just a fresh paint job. It's a lot of work, but they're well versed in this.
Right. Yeah. So a look at their website will disclose the fact that they are either operating or in the process of redeveloping arena and stadium assets around the world, almost on every continent. And the project here in Canada is their first here in Hamilton, but they've done this for a considerable period of time, and they're led by a gentleman, Mr. Tim Lewicki, who had a prior life, many will appreciate, with MLSE, who was one of the world's leading authorities and most experienced CEOs in delivering assets and experiences of this type. So you really couldn't find a better partner, a better corporate partner in doing this. And I think notably, as Tim said, when he launched the arena redevelopment project a year or so ago, you have a gentleman in an organization that believes in what he termed stewardship, the obligation to bring all of the assets and capacities of that company to help transform a community and not just change the asset.
Now, you mentioned it's sort of a major project, the arena being a part of that, convention center, but there's also the Commons, and that's something that's very near and dear to you. So how can your group build the Commons with the major issues that are currently facing downtown?
Well, I think it's the aspiration and vision to use the investment in the asset itself to facilitate and assist in the transformation of the community. You've got the asset, you've got the bones, the skeleton of the facilities themselves, but going back quite some time, we realize that this could actually be a catalyst for the transformation of the downtown core and potentially the community as a whole. And we have that belief. There are moments in which we're really carrying on the basis of faith, but we have the belief that this is possible here, particularly because of the size of our community. When you look at the ratio of these assets as a percentage, or whether you look at it in terms of square footage or just in the significance of the assets, they really have a massive impact on the core itself. You've got the convention facility, you've got the arena asset, you've got the performance and concert hall. All Hamiltonians will appreciate that this is a big part of the history and potential vibrancy of the downtown core. So when you can take those assets, you appreciate you've got the heart of the urban center of the city. And going back to the conversation that we had a moment ago around the programming of these assets, what you bring, what it does, what it catalyzes, presents, I think a once-in-a-generation opportunity to use the moment and these investments to regenerate the city as a whole. So the aspiration is to wrap around the assets themselves really compelling programming and placemaking, and bring in a variety of stakeholders and partners within the community and outside of it to be a part of a vision and an aspiration for the revival of the city, and to be as inclusive as we can, looking not only to support businesses, and I think this is really important to understand, we're not only intending to support commercial opportunity in the city, but there are a variety of ways which I'm happy to explore in which we're looking to raise and lift all boats. We work with a variety of social enterprises and charities, a variety of community groups, the city itself, in leveraging these assets and the investments to help a variety of causes.
Let's talk about one of those community groups. This is Equal Parts Hospitality, and this is from a Scott Radley piece last month in The Spectator. Jason Cassis says right now there are legitimate safety concerns about running restaurants and hospitality places downtown. Can you sympathize with him? Like, when you hear that, what are you hearing? When you hear somebody worried about safety who wants to operate businesses and says businesses want to come downtown, but they're worried about safety, how do you respond?
Well, it's a lived experience for me. I've been working in the downtown core in Hamilton for 30 years. I helped start the Gowling WLG office in 1995. We have over 100 employees that work in the downtown core, and we experience that reality every day. In fact, like many other businesses, we're obliged to engage private security to ensure the safety of our staff and the clients that come to the office. So it's a reality that we experience all the time. Jason is a friend. He's a phenomenal downtown entrepreneur. He reflects the sentiment of many downtown business people and those that use the downtown core, that there are real issues around safety and security that need to be addressed honestly. We're balancing the reality that we have to contend with these issues. We don't want to be apocalyptic about it because we're very much resolved to recruit investment in the downtown core. We believe that there's hope, and that with dedicated action, not just on the part of the city itself, but on the part of community leaders in the downtown core, that we can and make an improvement. But we, like many other cities, are afflicted by a variety of the same issues that confront society generally today. It's not an easy problem to solve. It's going to take everyone working together to try to make it better, and it's really about direction. There isn't going to be a complete solution to safety and security downtown anytime soon, anywhere, I don't think, but we can make improvements and work to help the situation in a variety of ways, and we look forward to doing that in partnership with the city.
In that, what are you hoping to see from the city's end? Is it a financial input? Is it being part of the conversation? Like, what's the city's responsibility from your perspective and from HUPEG's perspective?
Well, what a hot button question. I think if there were two things that I would say that we hope and expect from the city, they would be leadership and vision. As it relates to leadership, The question of political leadership in driving an outcome, I think, is very much on the minds of almost all Hamiltonians who are paying attention and who are impacted by these issues. And there's a balance between, speaking to and confirming the challenges that we're facing, but also being able to create a sense of optimism and hope, and also to direct action. It's a political environment, and there are going to be differences of opinion on council as there are in the community. But I think whether it's the mayor or senior leaders on council, creating a coalition, a majority of those that want to bring the city in a certain direction can articulate what that direction is and bring the community generally around that. That's leadership. I think that's something that's desperately needed right now, and that's a hope that we all have.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned vision, too.
Well, what is the vision? We've, on the part of the private sector, in articulating the idea of the commons, have put forward a vision, the vision that we feel is compelling, that we'd like to see realized in the downtown core. It's a vision of prosperity, of vibrancy. Clearly, there's an element of safety and security. It's one of hope. Hamilton has enormous promise. But we've unfortunately worn the brand of the city that's never missed an opportunity to miss an opportunity for generations. We think that this investment by OVG and Live Nation is that one transformational moment, that a gift really from the universe to actually turn the page. But it can't be done by the private sector alone. It really needs to be done by a coalition of political leaders, business leaders, and the community as a whole if it's going to get accomplished.
Well put. Let's talk about the Salvation Army. That's obviously been a point of conversation when it comes to the arena. Where do you see... How can this be resolved? What would you like to see? What would be the next steps? Is it going to move? Will HUPEG support the move financially? Where do we stand when it comes to the Salvation Army?
Well, I can't speak to the Salvation Army's intent and their resolve. I can say, having met with them, that this is a group of incredibly dedicated community leaders who are supporting really the most challenged in the community. So, we're very cognizant of the fact that downtown investment really needs an environment of safety and security to prosper and thrive. On the other hand, it isn't a solution for us or anyone else to push out communities in need simply to ensure the viability of a commercial asset. For us, it's critically important that the Salvation Army and what they do find, to the extent that they're resolved to do this, find a home and have the resources and supports necessary to fulfill their mission to support the communities that they minister to. And we'll do everything that we can to support them in doing that. And I'm very hopeful and optimistic, given the leadership that they've shown and the work that they've done, that there will be a solution that works for them, the communities that they minister, and the Downtown Entertainment Group project as a whole. And
those are ongoing conversations? That's something that's happening? There's no set date for a decision to be made, anything like that? No, there's no set date for a decision to be made. There are conversations that are ongoing, and fundamentally, we're just incredibly supportive of and want to help in any way we can to help them fulfill the mission that they have. There's a lot of real estate around First Ontario Centre, and I remember going back to the shovel going in the ground, Tim Leiwecke's visit to the First Ontario Centre, that movie shoot going on in the background, and then seeing that movie on in theaters a couple months later. But there is so much real estate around it. One of them is Sir John A. Macdonald School. Like, how do you hope, and how can you, as HUPEG, encourage others to see your investment and to call, to raise? Like, how can you guys push, as HUPEG, push more private investment into downtown? Well, it's a great question and an important one, and an area where I spend a good deal of my time. So first of all, you have the investment, a very sizable investment made by a world leader, which is a vote of confidence in the community and its future. We could look at that as first money in. And that money, we hope and expect, will bring additional investments by others over time and give them confidence that with the commitment made from an organization like OVG and with the programming that Live Nation brings,
brings, that investment in the downtown core is a good one. That if you were to look at the city as a stock, it's a stock that's on the rise. There are every day conversations with a variety of commercial interests, those within the city and outside of the city, talking about investments in the downtown core. Myself and others are personally invested in some assets in the downtown core. We're working to support entrepreneurs like Jason Cassis and others in staying in the downtown core. But I think that the actual completion of the arena reinvestment, the redevelopment project, and I think the programming that's going to come, and I think a little bit of information around the significance of it being primarily a music venue rather than a sports venue will be important. But I think once those impacts begin to be realized, we're going to see a lot more confidence around additional investment by others in the downtown core.
Let's talk about that. The idea of this being a primarily music venue, the designs are that way. Whether it's no more longer hockey dressing rooms for green rooms. There's going to be a focus on the artists themselves and all that. Why is it in 2024 you don't need an anchor tenant that is a major sports team to guarantee you 41 games a year or something like that? Why does HUPEG, why does OVG feel confident that as of right now you don't have that anchor tenant, but that you don't need an anchor tenant like that?
Taylor Swift.
Is she coming? Because that's breaking news, Lou. If you're going to tell me Taylor Swift's coming to Hamilton,
and I'm giving away tickets today, Lou.
Number one highest rated show ever.
And really, this is the magic sauce. In the initial discussions and some of the early community presentations, OVG Live Nation provided really a commercial business case around that particular question. And fundamentally, if you look at the North American market as a whole, you realize that the GTA is in the top 3 of media and entertainment markets in North America, behind the New York greater metropolitan area and LA. And in both of those cases, I believe there are 5 major arenas or stadiums in those markets. In the GTA, we have one. That is the one in downtown Toronto. So from a market need perspective, there's a glaring gap in opportunity, and Hamilton fortuitously presents that opportunity for OVG and Live Nation. You've got 2 incredible sports franchises in Toronto with the Raptors and the Leafs that black out roughly 40% of the available nights for music in Toronto, which creates the opportunity to fill a gap here. And the reality that from a monetary commercial perspective, music and the creative economy generally is a massive mover of investment and money. I was looking at some statistics around Taylor Swift's proposed concerts in Toronto. 5 or 6 Taylor Swift concerts are estimated to create upwards of $500 million in economic investment. And those that tend to go to those events are also ones that tend to spend on dining and food and other things when they go to concerts, and that's critical to the community as a whole. It's going to entertain and have sports, but music and creating an environment for artists that is exceptional in North America, which OVG and Live Nation are doing with this facility, will bring not only internationally renowned musical acts, but an enormous amount of economic impact and investment for the community as a whole, and will put us on a map in a way that for all the great the Bulldogs did, they can't do. When you have musical acts like Taylor Swift coming to town repeatedly, the venue in the city becomes a brand that becomes recognized internationally and then becomes a catalyst for further investment and tourism.
I think it's interesting because I never really heard that, and I remember that that first meeting at City Council a few years ago where you and PJ first spoke about this. I thought that's not going to work. You're going to need an anchor tenant, but the more I hear about it, it definitely sounds like you guys have a plan, and we'll see if it plays out. You mentioned City Hall. We talked about what you'd like to see. What is that relationship with City Hall? We saw the mayor getting through. There obviously is a local councillor that represents Ward 2 as well. Have you gotten pushback from him? But what's your relationship? What's HUPEG's relationship like with City Hall?
Well, this wouldn't have happened in the absence of the support and encouragement of the mayor, certain critical members of council, and senior staff, and that relationship is ongoing. From time to time, anything of this significance is going to have its bumps, as this has and will. There's no getting around that, but the relationship is very collaborative and supportive. It's been phenomenal to date. That's going to need to continue if we're going to achieve the results that we want for the community. So I can't say enough about that. You did mention the Ward 2 councillor, and I can't say anything about that because we really have had no engagement with him around this project.
Interesting. Want to talk about timelines here. You mentioned on time, on budget, that being the arena. So we're looking at a fall 2025, so about this time next year, putting the final bells and whistles. Are you booking dates into 2025 now or is that an Oakview Group question? But are there things on the calendar for 2025 in anticipation of this being on time, on budget?
It is an Oakview Group Live Nation question, but my understanding is that they are looking at the opening and initial acts, and I imagine that they're going to come out with some announcements around that at the appropriate time. But you can be sure if openings, for example, in a recent opening in Manchester, England, is any example, that the acts that they bring to Hamilton to open the facility will be phenomenal, and I cannot wait.
And let's talk about further timelines then. So this is done fall 2025, convention center, other assets, the commons, like what would it look like? Is it based on funding? Is it based on locking down leases? How would it work? What would come next?
Well, as it relates to the physical assets, all of those are on time, whether it's the concert hall or the convention center. I'm expecting that those facilities will open on time as well, as with the arena. As it relates to the commons, what's happening right now, Louie, is that we're in the process of creating a new business improvement area. I think most people would be surprised to know that the downtown Hamilton business improvement area actually doesn't cover the downtown core or those entertainment assets. So we're in the process of working with the city right now in the creation of a new BIA. We hope to have that up and running by the time the arena opens. That formally will create really a coalition of downtown owners and operators of those facilities that will then involve programming, placemaking, a variety of what we hope will be improvements to how people get around and experience the downtown core, and we very much look forward to talking publicly about that in the upcoming months.
Looking forward to that. Want to talk real quick. We had the Burlington Mayor, Mary Ann Mead Ward, here a few months ago. She was mentioning a lot of the Aldershot area and the development around Aldershot. I know you have a little bit of a connection there. I'm going to put you on the spot here. How can you see that almost coinciding with what Hamilton's doing? Obviously a different area, but along the GO route, a huge area. Whatever you can share with us around Aldershot or your interests in that area would be appreciated.
Well, I'm glad that you asked. I happen to be an advisor to the company that's developing the Aldershot site at King Road. It's a wonderful company called Alinea. They're in the process of working with the City of Burlington on the redevelopment of that 120-some acres that surrounds or is east of the Aldershot GO station. The City of Burlington is contemplating an arena asset there that would be much smaller than the one that's currently in Hamilton. I should say, because I work quite a bit with Mayor Mead Ward, she is a phenomenal leader in that community that's worked very collaboratively with the developer of that site, along with members of council, to create what I think will be a remarkable community in and of itself. And here's the significance for the City of Hamilton. These assets, as we imagine them, won't be competing with each other. Economies operate everywhere in clusters. People look at municipal boundaries, but money doesn't really move solely within a municipal boundary. Businesses operate in regions. And the Hamilton-Burlington area as a whole, its economic development teams, its businesses often operate as an area. If you look at Aldershot and downtown Hamilton, they have something remarkable that connects them, and that is the GO rail line. Aldershot is a transition and terminal point for the Via Rail system as well. And so if you look at the two nodes as connected, you have an opportunity to project to the world, really, and the country as a whole, investments in communities that create entertainment opportunities where people can transit between them as if they're subway stops. Really, you can live in Aldershot and come in downtown Hamilton to experience a concert, and vice versa. And we very much look forward in the future to integrating and connecting both of those communities through these two redevelopment projects that have, in some sense, joint ownership, because Alinea is also a partner in the HUPEG Group. And I'm very excited for the community as a whole, both in Burlington and in Hamilton, to have the benefit of these assets and these communities operating in the future.
You've been saying you've been a part of the downtown Hamilton core for 30 years. You have lots of reasons to be optimistic, but I'm sure it's taken a lot to get to this point to be that optimistic. How are you feeling about just the work that's gone into getting here? You're not done yet, but where you're at and how much further you have to go.
Well, I'm a chronically optimistic person. I wake up optimistic. I think all of us have had reasons to feel pessimistic, but I think it's important to have hope and to work towards that goal, to grind forward on this. I think with OVG's investment and Live Nation's participation, we have tangible reason to believe that something that hasn't happened in the past can happen in the future. But there's a variety of ways, Louis, in which this, isn't brought off successfully. And so every day, all of us wake up really feeling the weight of having to deliver around that. And there's just really no option but to work incredibly hard with as many stakeholders and partners as possible, not only conveying hope, but working to materially execute on a plan that will bring that result. And I'm very confident that it's going to happen.
I appreciate that. Real quick, Hamilton Commonwealth 2030.
Well, there's so much going on in the Commonwealth world right now, including the Commonwealth Federation's work to actually secure a city for 26, and it looks like Glasgow may be that city. Nothing is completely off the table. That hasn't completely gone away, but a great deal has to be done before that becomes a viable option. No matter where the Commonwealth Games are in 2030, we will be celebrating the origin of the Games in 1930, in 2030 in Hamilton, and we look forward to creating some compelling programming around that, whether or not the Games are here.
All right. I know that question is in honor of Steve Milton, who was one of the biggest supporters of Hamilton 2030, and for as long as I've known that guy, has been talking about it, and I know it's near and dear to your heart as well, so I thought I'd throw you that one right at the end there. All right, Lou, really appreciate you making the time today. It's an insightful conversation. Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to be here, Louis.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, my thanks to Louis Frapporti for joining me today, and my thanks to you as well, because we could not do the show without your support. Hey, make sure you like and subscribe. Yes, we're back. Newsmakers is back, so you can like and subscribe to CHCH Podcast so you never miss an episode of this show or any of the other great shows we have for you, including Sportsline with Bubba O'Neill, which you catch every Monday to Friday here on CHCH Podcast. Thanks, Mike Corsten, for directing today's episode. And one more time, thank you for tuning in. Much appreciated. From all of us here at CHCH, I'm Louis Butko, hoping you have a great day.